Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind.
Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode number 597 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Hey, why not get your news from a source that is actually cares about whether or not you get information, as opposed to the party line. The American party line, that is. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beavery, and with me is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Today, recording day is Friday. Thank God I'm Fly Day, March 7th, 2025. And again, it's a great day here at the Beaver Lodge. A little colder. We had a little bit of extra winter yesterday. Had some snow and not very well, actually a little colder in the evening. But the day was beautiful until that started. So yeah, some last gasps of old man winter here as spring comes knocking on the door. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsor, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.com. Mr. Grizzly, how is your mental health today, my friend?
It's a little bit better. Yeah, markedly better from yesterday.
Okay, good.
A lot going on in my world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not at liberty to speak about it, but there's a lot going on right now, and there's some stress. I mean, financial stress, emotional stress. It's a tough time of the year. So I'm a little bit better today than I was yesterday. I think I slept right through the night from the time I went to bed until I don't think I woke up in the middle of the night last night. I don't remember waking up in the middle of the night, which is incredibly rare for me. So I think I got a solid 6 hours of sleep, which is what I need. More than 6 hours and I'm groggy. So I think last night was a good night, sleep-wise. Yeah, there's stuff going on, like I said. And I've been trying to get an ASMR together all week, but I've just not had the physical energy to do it. And I think today I do have the energy, feeling slightly motivated. And yeah. I did want to share something with you really quickly at the top of the show, though, just to express the brevity of the situation we're in right now, but at the same token, put some lighthearted laughter in, because we could really use that. I thought I'd share this image with you that was sent to me earlier. It's crash-landed alien spaceship at Roswell, New Mexico in 1947, and 2 soldiers are wrestling a alien gray away. In the meantime, there's a naked tiny Trump running off, and it says, "You fools, it's getting away."
No wonder he wants to reveal the secrets. He'll be famous. Oh my God. Oh, I needed that. Thank you. Kits and cups. I'm doing well. I did not get as good sleep, but in good spirits nonetheless. But there'll probably be a nap at some point this afternoon. But it's really hard to stay awake for 3 curling matches a day. Especially when it's on BC time. So I watched because last night, if you're watching the Briar, it's been an exceptional Briar, and in both there's the 18 teams are divided into 2 pools, and in the last pool, in Pool A, their last match, um, you know, depending on who won and who lost and whatnot, there was 4 teams that could get in, and it was a combination of victories and different things that made it such that someone would get in and someone would get out. And it went like pretty much to the last shot. And there were 2 teams that had perfect records, so someone was going to like finish on. So it was like all the drama that you could want. And then the other one, it was the battle because only the top 3 in each pool go ahead. It was the battle, right? There was one team that started slow and they had to win out in order to make it. And they did it. They actually won out. So it was great. And the Team Yukon has been like a great story in this one, just picking up wins. Because teams from the territories, because it costs so much to travel and participate in competitions on the tour. It's not that they're bad curlers, it's just that they don't have the repetitions, and because they can't get to as many competitions on the tour. The team from Yukon doesn't even compete on the tour.
Oh, okay.
Right. And this guy just, shows up at Canadian Nationals and like picks up like 2-3 victories. Right. It's good quality curling and a good quality field. These are all world-class curlers, even though some of them are not on the tour. So like 2 matches, like with high stakes, who's in, who's out. So the last 2 sets, all the drama you could like want, the good drama, sports wise, all the excitement, nail biting stuff. It's just a fantastic Briar. And so many teams, like after 6 games, we're at 6-0. There were 3 teams, I think, that were that night. It's like nobody knows who has the advantage really this year. You can only go by rankings, but everybody's playing really well. So the next few days, if you've never watched curling, these matches coming up today, tomorrow, and Sunday would be the ones to watch to actually see like the best curling there probably is on the planet. So treat yourself. So when there's good curling, I'm a happy beaver. It's just that simple. I'm pretty easy to keep happy. Just water me, feed me, point me towards sunshine, give me some good tennis, give me some good curling, and some interesting politics. Maybe not as interesting as the "May you live in interesting times" interesting. And I'm happy.
Proverb, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And some regular snuggles, of course. And I'm happy. I'm pretty low maintenance.
I just learned about something a moment ago that I did not know. I'm going to share this. This is important news, actually, and poignant and appropriate all at the same time. Did you know that there is a new facility being built at the Royal Ottawa?
Oh.
Matthew Perry House.
Oh.
Yes, it's being built next to the Royal Ottawa Hospital and will offer on-site mental health and support services for those in recovery.
Well, for those who don't
It's
know,
appropriate because Matthew Perry grew up in Ottawa. His mom worked for Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau. I mean, yeah,
and for those who don't know, the Royal Ottawa Hospital is the hospital in Ottawa that specializes in mental health
and addictions.
and addictions. Yes,
But they kind of go hand in hand, right? I mean,
yes, yeah. But as those who've followed the show for a while know, my mother suffered from schizophrenia all my life that I know of. Right. until she passed, and was that I remember, I think in my life 2 or 3 times admitted to the Royal, and uh, I don't know. It's been 20, 30 years or more now, but at the time, she got very, 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 very good care.
Well, and it's long known as they're very good. They're very good. For a long time, people would hate to say, and the old saying was, "Oh, going to the RO, are you?"
Yeah,
It was a snide sort of, "Oh
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah," in the loony bin. Eh? We don't talk like that anymore. Now
No,
it's
especially
like,
not about the Royal.
no, it's like, oh, go to the Royal, go to the Royal. And I have a number of friends in town who work in broadcasting, who have spent time there and have praised both the facility and the fact that we have it. And they rebuilt a number of years ago. They because the old facility was in pretty rough shape. So they
Yeah,
built a whole new entire facility, a couple of new wings. It can handle a lot more people. It's a good place. Trust me on this one. It's a good place. I've known friends who've gone there when they were in desperate situations, and have come out on the other side doing much, much, much better. So yeah, no, it's important to talk about your mental health. It's important to talk about your addictions, because keeping those things in the dark can lead to bad things. I know I lived in the dark for a long time about my mental health. And I first talked about it in the 90s, and the response I got was, "Why are you depressed? You have a good life, you have a good job, you have a nice apartment. What's the problem? Why are you so sad?" I'm like, "That's not what depression is." The vast general public at the time did not know what depression is. They didn't know that it's a serious medical health issue. They didn't
mm,
know that it can affect you physically. They didn't know what it was. Now we have a large corporation that raised some money, and they did a good thing in saying, "Let's talk."
right.
I mean, they didn't walk the talk, because
Especially with
during
employee relations.
employee relations, and during COVID, they fired 800 people and then took $140 million in CERB, well, not CERB, but funds that went to
EWS, I
businesses.
think it was, or something.
Yeah. So yeah, they don't walk the talk, but it did get people talking. It did, and
Yep.
it passed by this year with almost no fanfare.
I know.
Like, I
It,
think
it,
they got the message that, look, we're talking. You get your corporate logo off of that. Thank you for starting what you started. You helped create an awareness and a campaign that was good, but now you need to stop, because you don't walk the talk.
right. Right. Indeed. Indeed. Before we get started, a couple of things, because with all the news, we missed a few things. So we mentioned it in passing the other day, but for those who are observing, Ramadan started on February 28th, and it goes till March 29th. So to our Muslim kids and cubs who are observing and hopefully enjoying lovely feasts when it comes time to eat, and are getting ready for the big feast at the end for Eid, I think Eid al-Fitr, I think it is. Eid al-Fitr. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but hope that everything is great. So happy Ramadan to you. And for the Catholics, Lent started this week. Tuesday was Mardi Gras, and Wednesday was, of course, Ash Wednesday. You may have seen people on TV with some marks here on their forehead. I was watching somebody testify in the United States, and she had it there, and it was like, oh yeah, it was Ash Wednesday.
Well,
This,
and Ash Wednesday is specifically a Catholic thing.
yes, specifically.
I'm a Christian. Are you evangelical? Are you Protestant, a Baptist, a Southern Baptist? Which branch are you from? Because only Catholics get the ashes on Ash Wednesday.
No,
Yeah, it's really a Catholic thing to go.
yeah.
Now, I
See,
know
see
that.
that I don't know. Because I was raised Catholic and went to a French Catholic school. At
Mhm,
the age that happens, I just assumed everybody did that then, right?
yes,
So
it
I
was
didn't know that.
Mark Wahlberg and Mayor Wu, two Bostonians.
Yes, Mayor Wu was the person I saw.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
Mark Wahlberg as well. Although he, I think he was on Tuesday and he had his ashes already, and I was like,
Interesting. So, Lent started on the 5th and ends on April 17th. So, for those who are observing, are sending you our best as well. And of course, for those who are wondering about Passover, that's later this year. It starts on April 12th. So, lots of observances. Yes, the
40
pancakes on
days.
Shrove Tuesday. Yes, yes.
Shrove Tuesday. And did for Pancake Day or Shrove Tuesday, did you? Because we used to do that growing up. My mom always made pancakes on Shrove Tuesday, and she would put money in. So you'd get it on your plate, and you'd tap it with your fork until you found like a nickel or a quarter or a dime or something. I guess now it would be toonies and loonies, but
yeah, we never did that. My mom did do that with the birthday cake, though.
Oh, okay.
I have a strawberry shortcake, but then I'm realizing that now it's like that was a terrible choking hazard. They were just like stuffed.
Yeah.
Apparently, that was a thing back then. That was done.
Yeah. Hey, lawn darts were a thing,
like,
man.
It's like, I guess that's why she chose strawberry shortcake, though, because it's all kind of soft and mushy. It's like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's like sitting there and I'm thinking, like, it's like, how did I survive? No helmets while biking, coins and cake, just
lawn darts.
Yeah, really.
And oftentimes a parent or two parents who smoked Export A Green 2 packs a day in the house,
in
the automobile while you're driving on a 4-hour road trip.
Yes.
In the winter when the windows were rolled up. How are we all not dead?
Hot boxing with benzene. Woohoo!
I know why we're still alive. We were all vaccinated.
Oh, see what you did there. Okay. All right, kids and cubs. There's the big news. So I guess I'm trying to wonder, like, if we start with that, will we ever get to the other stuff? But hopefully we'll start with that and get through that very quickly, because there is other news, right? Other than the Orange Menace south of us, and some really big things happened yesterday, particularly of note in Canada and for Canadians. But as predicted, kids and cubs, I felt a little smug yesterday because I said called it many times. As you know, when we started the show, we talked about Trump having blinked on things related to automotive. Well, it turns out that IQ-47 blinked 3 times in fewer than 24 hours. You see, because as we mentioned on the show, Donald, as our prime minister has taken to calling him repeatedly, more than once now, this is not an accident. The same way that governor is not an accident, Donald is no longer an accident. He's done it many times in English and in French. In English, in French first, and then in English in the same press conference. This is not a slip.
No.
He is deliberately trying to get under his skin. And here's the thing, kids and cubs. If I am not mistaken, I think Canada has gone on offense.
Yes, because we're not backing down. It's like, all right, we're putting him in. Well, we're going to put him on hold for a month. Yeah, we're not doing that. We're not playing this back and forth psychodrama. What was it? They asked
Mélanie Joly.
Mélanie Joly said this psychodrama, and they said to the prime minister, "What do you have to say about this?" He goes, "It's Thursday," as the response being like, "This is what Trump is going to do."
And a lot of this is following the similar pattern, right? The timelines are a little different. He stretched it out a bit. He was able to take a little more pain, but it was the same thing. So, made the concession on automotive. Didn't get the bounce in the stock market he expected the following morning. All the stock markets closed lower. The futures closed lower. I mentioned it on the show, right? The futures were showing lower. Stock markets opened lower. And they weren't budging. Around 10 something in the morning, just like last time, announces, Mexico, you're getting a reprieve on all USMCA or CUSMA or NAFTA 2 compliant things. Apparently that's a thing. I'm not exactly sure fully what it means, but I got a little bit of an idea. So I'll tell you the best that I can understand that when it happens. But it's CUSMA, things that are CUSMA compliant. There'll be no tariffs on that until I think April 2nd, which is the day that he was going to announce all the reciprocal, what he's calling reciprocal tariffs, because apparently they're looking at all the tariffs that all the nations in the world are charging them. And if you're charging us 5% on this, we're charging you 5% on that too. Apparently that's the objective. And they're just going to do that blanket all over. Now, what it is, they're going to consider tariffs because they like to have fun with words. And do something reciprocal with is going to be a thing. This is not very wise because countries are, Canada, Mexico, and other countries are already coordinating. If he goes against all of them, the American consumer will not be able to tolerate boosts, equivalent boosts from all other countries at a coordinated, simultaneous time. Right? He couldn't handle automotive for 24 hours.
No.
So global coordination, he will not handle. So he didn't get his stock market boost. And then at 10 a.m. in the morning, like he did last time, announced Mexico. And then everybody in Canada was going, all the press was going, oh my God, he gave it kick into Mexico, but not Canada. And then the conservatives was like, oh my God. And it was like, cave. And we didn't. And later that day, what he gave to Mexico, he gave to us. Well, this time was the same thing. At 10 something, he gave something to Mexico. And when that happened, I'm sitting there, oh, okay. So he's caved on automotive. And then yesterday I was mentioning stuff about potash and pork and all that kind of stuff and the USAID. I said, perhaps the next cave will be on agriculture. Probably. And I'm saying right now he takes the things off Mexico. And I say, well, oh, great. Now all Canada has to do is wait.
Yes.
And apparently there was some phone calls that happened, phone calls that are described as colorful, in which there was profanity. Apparently profanity that was just one way because the prime minister is the prime minister and he did not return that. Apparently, based on further discussions, the profanity had something to do with the dairy sector. Apparently that in particular has Trump really, really, really mad for some reason. And it's like, sorry, but you guys subsidize. We do not. That's why we do supply management. There's only so much stock that we're going to allow to circulate. So maintain a minimum basic price for those who do the work. They're both helping farmers just in different ways, and they are not equivalent. Now, if you would like to, if you're okay with us subsidizing our farmers at the same rate you subsidize yours, then we take care of that, but still doesn't mean we want to open our markets to milk that's boosted with hormones.
Well,
so that even if we adopted the same system as them, that's still not going to solve the basic problem.
No, it won't.
Right.
One of the issues they've discovered over the last 45 years is that the steroids treating the dairy cows that they administer to dairy cows and the hormones in the milk, children in the United States of America have been maturing physically at a much younger age. And there was a study written about this in 1980, and they figured that at the time. I remember reading about this in Time magazine. They figured at the time, 11-year-old girls who were starting to get their period and who were developing breasts, they're like, wait a minute, what? This is not right. This is not normal. And they traced it back to steroids for the cows and hormones in the milk. And yeah, nothing's been done since.
Yeah. So they're swearing a profanity about that. And I think there was another sector in particular, I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, that had him a little itchy, but he didn't get profane about that part. Apparently the phone ended.
He did get profane.
A phone call ended somewhat cordially. Right. So I'm guessing there was probably a realization that, yeah, whatever you do, you're still going to have to keep talking to us because, as one pundit put it, I didn't think you expected us coming as one. And yes, while you are bigger, we can fuck you up for a while. we do have leverage and ways to fuck you up for a while.
Well, and something else that needs to be noted here is, although we rely upon the United States of America to purchase a lot of our goods and in many cases services too, we are looking at new trade routes with new trade partners. But at the same time, if we have to stop all exports to you or just increase the tariffs to the point where they stop purchasing, we have plenty enough to feed ourselves. We have enough food, we have enough water, we have enough land to build more shelter on. In other words, we could close the border to the United States of America and we would have a rough patch, but in the long term, we would be fine.
Yes.
We don't want to do that, though. We don't want to turn our backs on what has long been our neighbors, our allies and our neighbors. I have
most
friends
of
and
us have
family.
some types of exactly.
Friends and family throughout the United States. I don't want this trade war, but Trump doesn't give a shit. And
No.
one of the things about he's gonna put the tariffs on. Then at the end of the day, he takes the tariffs off. And somebody noted, watch how the stock market drops. They're purchasing everything they can. Then he lifts the tariffs, and then it spikes again.
Mm-hmm. Well,
he announced it too late yesterday to get the spike.
Well, no, but here's the thing: is he thought he would get the spike, though.
Yeah.
Right, because when he announced the automotive tariffs were coming off that day, the stock market did close at about similar. It had dipped a lot, but it had regained a lot. But that he announced the thing on Mexico, and there was like a little blip rebound, and then it went right back down to where it was.
Yeah.
And then like past 3 something in the afternoon, oh God, I need an end of day bounce. So Canada too, said all we had to do is wait, and he didn't get the bounce.
Yeah.
Now this morning the futures,
all of the wealthy in America,
because
money.
Again, that's what I keep on saying, right? You got to come back to some basic fundamental principles. Business people like stability and predictability.
Mm-hmm.
This is not it.
They want to see that it has to continually just go up. Maybe if it goes like this, or this, or even that sometimes. But when it does that, and that, and that, and that, no.
Some constant, a little consolidation, they're fine with that. But so long as it keeps going little stair steps up, right? But number 2, if you are doing things, now his objective, as stated by the Prime Minister, of course, and everyone is clear now, right? All these things are pretext. It really is to break down our industries and have everybody redomicile to the United States. And I keep on saying, those of you who do that, remember what happened in China, remember what happened in Russia, when people started establishing themselves there. And then at some point said, hey, these things are working. These are ours now. If the United States is becoming a nation state in the style of Russia and China, all your efforts to redomicile there might give you a temporary economic advantage for a few years. But don't think that what you're building there is yours. If you're going to redomicile, you would probably best be redomiciling here in Canada. Just saying. If you don't want your assets just automatically seized one day, if you don't want that risk, Canada is a stable, predictable, safe country with an educated people that actually follows rules-based order and fights for it. You might want to redomicile here, actually, because when all of this is over, we're still going to be friends with Europe and South America and the UK and Asia and Australia and Greenland.
The rest of the world. Yeah, the rest of the world. We're going to be friends with the rest of the world. Well, except for Russia, because they're the axis of evil. They're the evil empire that's aligned themselves with the president of the United States.
Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, the whole African continent. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people to sell a lot of stuff to.
Oh, I've got some breaking news here.
Okay.
Breaking news. This just in from the Beaverton. Breaking: Mexican cartels abandoned Canada after being forced to conduct business in both English and French. I couldn't resist that one. It was just too good.
Breaking news.
This just in from the wire.
So, Trump blinked on automotive. Then Trump blinked on Mexico. And then Trump blinked on us. And in his blinking, Trump gave us another tell. He gave us another tell. He let us know where on the body it hurts.
Mm.
It was only 10% for oil and gas. Well, it seems that also on something like potash in particular. Potash. And just yesterday, we were talking about Iowa farmers. And potash.
How soon till we see farmers organize a parade of tractors heading towards DC? It could happen. I'm not saying it will. We've seen it in other parts of the world.
Yep. So,
I wonder if the Freedom Convoy people will get on board with that. Board with that, I should say. Will they bandwagon it? I was trying to say two things: bandwagon and board. Will they get on board? Will they bandwagon that one?
Yep.
No, because we already saw them yesterday saying we're not doing the buy Canadian thing. I've seen literally hundreds of those on the Twitter. We're not buying Canadian. This is bullshit. I'm buying whatever I want. Our government is trying to force us to buy Canadian only. I want.
Was that Kirkland Lake Farms?
What's that?
Is that Kirkland Lake Bot Farms again?
I think no. These are legit convoyers. We're saying we're not buying Canadian. We're buying what we want. Our government, and they're literally, this is the tyranny of the Canadian government. Look what they're doing. They're pulling American products off the shelves, taking away our choice, taking away our rights. Oh, fuck off. If you can't support this country, I will help you pack and send you on your merry way. Get the fuck out of Canada. If you will not support Canada, Canadians, Canadian businesses, and stand up to retaliatory tariffs at a time necessary, get the fuck out, you unpatriotic traitors.
So, according to Bloomberg yesterday, right, President Donald Trump is considering exempting certain agricultural products from tariffs imposed on Canada and Mexico. The latest move by the administration on Wednesday to offer relief to certain sectors from the sweeping new import taxes. So, like I said, automotive first. Now, agriculture. We already know that with regards to certain spirits like Jack Daniels, they're already saying that Canadians not buying is worse than tariffs. So, and you have to remember with agriculture as well, the thing that we stated yesterday is that on that particular point is that the majority of our early measures does impact agriculture, and China's measures. And yesterday I said they were 15% of general correction. Some were 15 and some were 10. There's different products, but those from China, and China's stated strategy is explicitly to attack agriculture. So if the U.S. does more, they're going to heap on more on agriculture. So if we decide that we're doing that too, when Mexico decides they're doing that too, how many days before the man who can dish out pain but can't tolerate it, remember bone spurs, is going to blink? And then after agriculture and automotive, maybe spirits, what's the next? He seems to be really hard up about steel and aluminum, but the defense industry really needs that. So I guess we can, have all our defense people talking about sourcing things from Sweden, UK, and Germany and stuff. And that might put a little fear. So Maybe steel and aluminum will go, and then softwood lumber. Well, then we just need to get our housing industry out there because there's starting to be a little bit of a housing crisis in the United States as well. Divide and conquer turns out is a two-way street when you're working together with friends and allies. Who knew? Oh, we did. We did. That's the reason Trump really likes bilateral deals, because one-on-one, he's always the bigger guy. But the problem with fighting wars on too many fronts at once is that other people that you're fighting kind of at one point get tired of being punched in the face and realize, hey, you know what? If I take my slingshot from the left flank and you use your curling broom from the right flank and you come from behind with a hockey stick, maybe we can take this fucker. It's, I mean, you gotta be nice to people on the way up, man.
Yeah, well, some people don't understand that or have ever learned that lesson.
Gotta be nice to people on the way up. So according to Bloomberg here, President Donald Trump is considering, well, this was March 5th, so this was at, before all of this happened. President Donald Trump is considering exempting certain agricultural products from tariffs imposed on Canada and Mexico, the latest move by administration on Wednesday to offer relief to certain sectors from the sweeping new import taxes. So as I mentioned yesterday, he's basically doing this the same way that Doge is doing this thing, a tariff on everything, and then somebody comes and goes, you can't tariff that, this will do that. Oh, okay, we'll do an exception for that. And a tariff for that. Oh, we'll do an exception for that. And then he reinterprets the phone calls that he has as some fantasy version where he's the hero and he got something and he won, because of course he always needs to win, right? So Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins told Bloomberg News that everything is on the table and she is hopeful that the administration could decide on providing relief for the agricultural sector. As far as specific exemptions and carve-outs for the agricultural industry, perhaps for potash and fertilizer, etc., to be determined, Rollins said Wednesday at the White House, "We trust the president's leadership on this. I know he is hyper-focused on these communities." The other thing to notice about this behavior, so it's also one of those other abuser behavior things where in the United States, everybody is fearful that these tariffs are going to happen. There's a threat coming, and then he removes the threat. And then they're all grateful for a while. And then the threat comes back, he removes the threat, and then they're all grateful for a while. And if he puts a threat, says, I'm going to take this much, and then he takes back some, but doesn't take back all, well, he's gained a little. But you're grateful that he didn't take it all. And eventually, that's how you give a finger. And then it's two. Then it's the hand. Then the wrist. Then the elbow. And he just takes and takes and takes and takes and takes until it's all gone. He bankrupted casinos, more than one. He takes and takes and takes until it's all gone.
6 casinos. Bankrupted 6 casinos. A casino is a literal license to print money.
It actually just hit me. Actually, the other day I saw the movie The Substance. The Substance could literally be about him. Someone who takes and takes and takes until it's all gone. At least one of the characters. Just like, oh my God, it's a perfect allegory for what happens if you put yourself in that situation. Yeah. Lawmakers from states with strong agriculture interests have pleaded with the administration to carve out tariff exemptions for fertilizers and other products that are critical for growing U.S. crops. Trump has pushed ahead with his threats to enact wide-ranging tariffs in his second term, dismissing warnings from economists that the measures risk fueling inflation and inflaming relations with crucial allies. Retaliatory tariffs have already erased gains this year for corn and soybeans, and revenue from crash crops is expected to fall for a third year in 2025. Also, on the stock market yesterday, the Dow Jones closed at 3% below, 3% down for the week, which is the on track for the highest weekly loss since March 2020.
That's kind of telling.
The
right?
stock market
5 years.
is the economy to Donald
Sorry.
Trump.
My phone was on there. Apologies.
Okay. China has already enacted countermeasures on a range of commodities, including soybeans, pork, and beef. Canada has also retaliated on about $107 billion worth of U.S. goods. I'm guessing these are American numbers here. While Mexico plans to announce its response on Sunday. Trump, during a joint address to Congress on Tuesday night, acknowledged that his tariffs against Mexico, Canada, and China, the world's second largest economy, would cause some, quote, disruption in the U.S., but said Americans would adjust to those changes and that the levies would help bolster domestic industries. So another one of those, some people may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make comments. Despite the delay in auto levies, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, who must be feeling like a damn yo-yo, because I keep on seeing him. Well, these tariffs are going to come back. Or he says he's really pleased about that, but you never know. I mean, it's the president. He has to always say, but you never know. It's the president that decides, or something like that. Because I think he's realized that any statement he makes is basically anything that Howard Lutnick says. It doesn't mean crap.
No, it does not.
It doesn't mean crap. Because he couches it all about, but it depends but the president makes the final call. So it's like you could be telling us anything at this point. The whole thing of this, right, is to be as clear as mud. And I think that's why Mélanie Joly in Canada is going, and Doug Ford and everybody going. It's like, c'est pas vrai qu'on va faire ça tous les 30 jours, là, tabarnak. It's not true that we're going to do this every 30 days. This is not sustainable. We are not going to do this. So you want to go back on your word? You want to reopen USMCA? Then let's freaking open it. Bring it to the table now, but stop this.
Mm.
And there were stories coming out that even before yesterday that this Lutnick character was on the phone with Doug Ford, pretty much asking him to take off those counter duties and his measures. Don't go so hard. Don't take the booze off your shelves. Don't do those things. Don't put the export tax on electricity. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick called Premier Doug Ford on Tuesday for a tough and aggressive conversation after the Ontario government announced its plan to slap a 25% export tax on electricity it supplies to 3 U.S. states. Sources said Lutnick asked Ford to back off his retaliatory tariffs, but the Ontario Premier refused, so long as U.S. President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs remain in effect. The U.S. Commerce Secretary picked up the phone and called the Premier of Ontario and said, "Don't put these tariffs on." And Doug said, "No." And we got the reprieve anyway.
And the tariffs still stand because we know they're just going to keep yo-yoing that for the next, 4 years?
Mm-hmm.
They're
Again,
going to keep yo-yoing it until he decides to actually implement them. And maybe he'll implement them today because we have decided that we're going to do it and we're not backing down.
Mm-hmm. So Mélanie Joly, who said, no, it's not true that we are going to do this every 30 days. Apparently, when she said that, she knew she had some backup.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so Canada's going on offense. It's like, you want a deal? Then let's sit at a table and deal. But this stuff, it's not happening. So these countermeasures did not come down. They asked for it to come. Now, you bet you that narrative is not playing anywhere in the United States. There is no news network in the United States that is playing the narrative that the U.S. Secretary of Commerce called the lowly Premier of Ontario and said, "Please don't put the 25% tariff in electricity in these 3 very, very important swing states,
mm-hmm.
New York, Michigan, and Minnesota." Well, New York's not so much a swing state, but Michigan and Minnesota are.
Yeah.
Please, please, please. We really need those votes, or we really can't have people getting mad at us. Did you see what they're doing to the town halls at us in Georgia and whatnot? So we can't have that. Do not make electricity 25% more expensive now, especially as summer's coming and the United States gets really, really hot. And we really need air conditioning. Please don't do that now. because it's not like we're doing anything to stop the climate from warming.
Interesting commentary from Playing with 3D. I think the plan is to keep the threat in place while the right-wing media twist the narrative that Canada is the aggressor. That's Playing with 3D's prediction. I think that's probably a pretty darn good one, to be honest with you.
Yep, probably.
I think that's probably exactly what the plan is.
Ford later released a letter he sent to the senators, congressmen, and congresswomen and governors of those 3 states to inform them about the province's plan to implement the surcharge on electricity if the Trump administration follows through on any more tariffs. This surcharge would be in addition to actions Canadian governments are already taking. When asked about whether this move will require the legislature to resume, Ford said he is still looking to how quickly a 25% export tax can be imposed on electricity. Quote, the federal government is in charge of any export, so we will be working with the federal government, Ford said, adding that he will be speaking to the Prime Minister this afternoon to discuss what the province can do to speed up retaliatory measures. So he added that if tariffs persist into April, the province will consider cutting off electricity to the U.S. Ford mused that the extra electricity could be used to power Ontario manufacturing plants. Quote, I feel terrible because they're great governors. I know all 3 of them. I work well with them. I met them all. We got them to Ontario. They are great people. I have to apologize to the governors and the American people. You need to make sure you send a message to President Trump. And American TV seems to like him because they keep on inviting him back. So
yeah, they keep inviting him back.
Yeah. The premier further announced that U.S. companies will be banned from taking part in government procurement, and he urged other municipalities and the provinces to do the same. I've asked Ontario Public Service, our ministers, our deputy ministers, to go through with a fine-tooth comb and anything, no matter if it's services through the tech sector or any other products, we need to stop immediately. And if they come at us, sue us, so be it. We are standing up for Ontario, we are standing up for Canada, and we are willing to fight in court, Ford said. I want to inflict as much pain as we possibly can. Petty Beaver is kind of happy there. Additionally, Ford has said Ontario is ripping up a $100 million agreement with Elon Musk's Starlink. Ford's comments came just hours after Trump hit Canada with the tariffs, blah, blah, blah. Quote, the coming days and weeks will be hard. Businesses and families will feel the pain of this needless fight, Ford said on Tuesday. We are going to get through this more united than ever before. Ford said that the province is also pursuing plans to halt the supply of nickel to the United States, but will need guidance by the federal government on how to proceed. Ford previously told CNN that U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs will have devastating impacts on the U.S. auto manufacturing sector, suggesting that assembly lines could shut down in the United States within a matter of days. Ford made the comments during an interview with CNN on Tuesday morning. We are going to continue seeing the U.S. plants close, assembly lines shut down, the premier said. It will only last 8 to maybe 10 days at the max, and then you are going to see auto plants being shut down. Speaking later in the day, Ford acknowledged that there will be plant closures on both sides of the border. This is unnecessary, and we do have to retaliate, and I apologize to the American people. It's not you, it's your president that is causing this problem. He's going to create job losses. Inflation is going up. The market is dropping. Gas prices are going up. Groceries are going up. In a country where he promised that he was going to lower the price of eggs. Ford also announced Tuesday that
Ontario going to do it on day 1 too, by the way. Lower the price of eggs and end the war in Ukraine.
Yes. Ford also announced Tuesday that Ontario will be pulling U.S. alcohol products from LCBO shelves in retaliation. And a friend of mine apparently yesterday was in a store and wrote to me and said he saw some people high-fiving as they were seeing the bottles being put in boxes.
That may have been James. Because he was in the store and saw nothing and pointed, and he said, I saw another guy, we looked at each other and high-fived.
We buy from 35 states, 3,600 products. They are coming off the shelf. Again, 3,600 products from the largest purchaser of alcohol in the entire world. Do you think the spirits industry is going to be pushing on Trump?
Well, and let's qualify the statement, because it is true. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario is the largest purchaser of alcohol in the world.
Yes.
You need to understand something to qualify that statement. Yes, the United States of America is about 8 times our population, somewhere in that neighborhood, 7-8 times our population. So they purchase and consume more alcohol. But the difference is when they purchase alcohol, it is not done by a single entity that represents or sells to 16 million people. They are smaller, largely independent liquor stores throughout the United States. Same thing in Alberta, mostly independent. You'll have the independents that might own 4, 5, 6, 10, maybe 15 or 20, but they do not have the purchasing power of the LCBO. The LCBO purchases more alcohol, liquor, beer, and wine, spirits, than any other single entity on earth, which is why they are the largest. There are vineyards in France that will sell to certain stores, but again, much smaller scale. So the LCBO is the largest single purchaser of wine and spirits on earth.
And larger also because it doesn't only purchase for the stores, but it purchases for restaurants.
Restaurants
Right.
and
Yeah.
now
Hotels, I think, and all that kind of stuff.
hotels, restaurants, bars, pubs, taverns, you name it, but also now for wine and beer for corner stores.
Yeah. So
corner stores and grocery stores, they have to purchase through the LCBO.
Right. So, I mean, that's a lot of booze.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? All the booze that you need for the stores, for people, what they consume at home, and to stock all the establishments where we go and may consume it.
Correct.
As well.
So, yeah,
It's a lot.
they are the largest single purchaser of wine, beer, spirits on earth. There are larger purchases made in the United States, but there's not one single entity that purchases as much.
Right. And then Ford said the U.S. president continues to be moving the goalposts in terms of his demands, noting that he has frequently changed his story about what is motivating the tariffs. And that's why Canada wants to move to the USMCA negotiations right away. No more of this fuzzy, it's fentanyl. Well, okay, we've reduced the number. Well, that's not the metric we're using. Then what metric are you using?
The one I made up in my head.
Because if we have to keep going until there are no fentanyl deaths in America at all, that's going to be never.
Well, here's one from Ron Filipowski, who is the Ron Filipowski.
Clear as mud.
Clear as mud. Ron Filipowski is the editor-in-chief of Midas Touch. One day, he's telling us that tariffs are amazing because they will bring lots of new jobs to the U.S. and raise so much money we won't have to pay income tax. Then the next day, he's telling us we aren't doing them because people were nice to him on the phone.
Pretty much. And even when they're not nice to them on the phone, when they have colorful conversations that make the president engage in profanity, we still get them. Right? So we're realizing that we don't necessarily have to kiss the ring here. We just have to push back harder. Remember, there's a clip that they keep on showing. There was a movie called The Apprentice that came out last year. Very, very well done, very well acted. But a lot of people didn't want to see it because they had too much Trump. They didn't want to go to the big screen and see it. But Oscar-nominated performances, and very good. But I think Roy Cohn, Trump was his apprentice.
Yes, very much.
Roy Cohn is one of the most disgusting figures out there. Mrs. Yes, when they punch you.
The interesting thing about Roy Cohn was he wasn't gay. He was a man who liked to have sex with other men, which apparently is a whole new thing that I just learned about recently. I'm like, I've heard that statement before, men who have sex with men, but they don't see themselves as gay. I'm like, what?
Yes.
Huh? That is a thing?
No, because to them, gay is gay.
Yes.
And we fight for the rights, and we have to be like this. I'm homosexual, but I'm not gay. Like, okay, Priscilla. Whatever you need to say to yourself to get by through the day. But this guy, his thing was if they punch you, you hit him back hard. And now with another punch, you take him out with a bazooka.
Yes.
Right? That's why Trump, everything's at like volume 150 right off the bat.
Oh, yes.
Just
absolutely.
annihilate. Never admit fault, never admit mistake. Just annihilate. Keep on saying it. Eventually, people will believe it's true. Just hit him with a bazooka. But we're pushing back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll remove these ones. Well, we're not removing ours. Well, we're going to keep that. No. We're not going to keep doing it. 30 days. Let's and we're not going to keep on doing this stuff like this. Let's reopen this CUSMA thing and let's start putting things down on paper, buddy. Let's start putting things down on paper. What do you want? What are your metrics? What are you measuring by? Let's put it down on paper because this is about fentanyl. No, it's about relocating things. Oh, it's about this. No, it's not the amount that matters. It's how many people died. Homie, don't play that. So, so Canada is sort of now taking the reins and sort of like trying to steer things. Fast forward this to the process because he's putting all these pressure tactics on us to try and soften us up for that moment to come. So we're going to say, no, let's just bypass the softening thing that you intend to do and just negotiate the damn thing. Because we're not going to back down. We're not going to kiss your ring. We're going to keep on pushing back. And there's going to keep on being uncomfortable moments. Because Americans weren't tuned into this a couple of weeks ago. Now they are.
Yes.
CNN and Fox are carrying the Prime Minister of Canada full remarks. Melanie Joly was on Amanpour the other night. Doug Ford is all over CNN and Fox. So was Daniel Smith was on CNBC. We are getting the airtime. And I have a feeling that very soon we're going to have a lot of friends within the Democratic Party who would like to say things but can't say things. That'll be creating opportunities for Canadians to go down and talk to Americans and say the things that they would like to say. But they can't.
Mm-hmm.
But we still can. Because his reach isn't as big over here as it is over there. I think we're going to start having the fact that we are willing to be beavers who are little shits and petty as fuck. I'm just saying.
Well, I gotta from
the beaver really does represent us.
Oh yes. So
it really does.
Trump's speech the other day, which could be considered a State of the Union, but not really.
Not really, yeah.
It's not really a State of the Union. It was just he wanted to have the spotlight on him for a couple hours. I just saw something came right across the wire here. I thought I'd put this on the screen. He says, Trump warns of increase in transgender mice since Haitians ate all the cats. And it was transgender.
For those who are wondering, yeah.
Not transgender.
Bless their hearts.
Transgenic.
And they think they're going to come out on top negotiating a trade deal. Yes, please. Let's negotiate the trade deal now. Let's, please. We're ready. We'd like to go now. While you're confusing transgender and transgenic, now's a good time to go. Let's negotiate that trade deal now. Oh my God. This guy. So yeah. Blinked. So what's happening in the United States is that the respective industries that are being affected by whatever he's targeting today, or whatever we're coordinating, he's getting all those phone calls and people are coming back. And the stock market goes down. Says, I need to do something. So he has this meeting where he talks tough and swears at the prime minister and all like this. We put the prime minister in his place. We put him on notice. All those words that they use. But meanwhile, those tariffs are gone.
Mm-hmm.
At least for another while. Now, the thing about COSMA qualified products or whatnot, apparently it's a paperwork or bureaucratic thing. Apparently companies that are doing trades in the United States to get completely tariff-free, they have to be certified in a certain type of way. And a lot of companies have just decided not to do that because it's not worth the trouble. And if that doesn't happen, then the basic World Trade Organization rules apply. And Canada has a most favored nation. So it's like something, maybe like a 5% tariff or something. And people are like, fine, just pay the 5% tariff, because to do all this paperwork and all the cost and whatnot, it's not worth it. So there's probably this thing means is that currently, as the United States estimates it, got to take the numbers with a grain of salt, that about 62% of Canadian companies, or 62% of the business that's done in the United States, does not fall under the COSMA compliance stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that would just be a question of a couple of paperwork. Okay. And apparently the COSMA compliance stuff is, basic regulations are saying, that in order to trade without any tariffs, completely barrier-free, that there's got to be certain things, the way that you're sourcing your materials, more North American and that type of stuff. If you commit to doing that, so and some people may choose to do that, but there are also some people who are doing that right now and say, oh, there's all the stuff that I'm sourcing over here in order to be CUSMA compliant. I can source that from Belgium
Mm-hmm.
and Peru, with whom we have a free trade deal now. Instead of being more CUSMA compliant, I'll do this. Or some of them will turn around and say, hey, if I'm sourcing something from Peru that I can source from Mexico, but not the United States, and still be CUSMA compliant, why the hell not? Just like, hey, if I have to take a little part of my company and create a small subsidiary and move that to the United States in order to get on the Dow, why not?
Yeah, well, why not?
But otherwise be Canadian. Why not? So apparently, according to Dominic LeBlanc, there's many ways that those who are not CUSMA compliant could probably be CUSMA compliant if they wanted to be. Relatively easy in order to benefit from that, because now it's not just a 5% tariff, right? It's 25, so it might be worth their while to do the paperwork now. So, but apparently there's a lot of Canadian businesses that just didn't bother to do the work that could relatively easily. So it's right. It can benefit more people a month or two from now, I guess, or maybe then. Could benefit at the current moment if people want to do the things that are required. But it seems that it's a bureaucratic paperwork type thing and might involve, in certain cases, people sourcing things from different places, making it more North American centric for their production. But yeah, that's pretty much where we are. And don't know if there were any more additional calls last night. I assume that there probably have been. Have no idea if there will be other backtracking today. Last I checked before the show, I'll check again now. The futures were actually a little bit up, which is positive. Maybe there was some digestion of the news of yesterday that allowed that. But yeah, and I was sort of looking at certain regions, and in Mexico in particular, it's slightly up 0.2% in pre-market trading. So that'll be good. But everything is still down in Europe today, and everything is down in Asia Pacific as well. So, but the VIX Fear Index thing popped into positive territory. The VIX Index is the index between fear and greed. It's ticking a little less fear now. So before I came on the show, it was ticking to more fear by 0.2%. Now it's about 0.6% to less fear. But the VIX was at extreme fear a couple of days ago. I think like on a score of like up to like 100 or whatnot like this. I think it was like at 78 or something. So like extreme fear. But if the VIX is more positive and the Mexican index is positive, so as is the case also in Brazil and Chile, there is a chance, a small chance, that markets today might open a little up, and then the rest will depend on how much Donald Trump opens his mouth today and what comes out of it. I have a feeling we might be expecting another concession.
In all
of some kind.
likelihood, I would
If not
anticipate
today,
that.
if not today, maybe at some point during the weekend, so that the markets open with a big boost on Monday. But essentially as well, pretty much all the stock market gains that had come in after Trump was inaugurated, from all the people that say, hey, we're going to get these big tax cuts and woohoo for the billionaires, and it's going to be good times. Laissez les bons temps rouler. He's lost all of those. He's lost all of it.
it's just a giant shit show. I mean,
In a week.
Economically speaking, historically speaking, tariffs do not help anyone, ever. It's been proven time and time again. All they do is damage both trading partners. Because you levy a tariff, the other trading partner levies a retaliatory tariff, which is what we've done here in Canada, which is the right move. And everybody hurts. We're the David in this David and Goliath. And so many people said, the Goliath is coming for you. I'm like, yeah, you got to remember, David killed Goliath. David, the little boy with a slingshot, killed the giant beast that was Goliath because he didn't back down and he wasn't afraid. Nobody wins in a trade war. A few people might make a little bit of money, but the vast majority lose. Trump is not a smart man. I know that Trudeau was being very polite by saying this is a dumb move by a smart man. He's playing to Trump's vanity and his narcissism with that statement. That's all that is. But Trump is not a smart man. He clearly isn't. Matter of fact, when he first got into the casino game, Roy Cohn warned him not to do it. Roy Cohn, who was a terrible human being, but a smart man, said, do not do this. You don't understand casinos. You don't understand how they work. You will do this, you will fail. So he ditched Roy Cohn because Roy Cohn wasn't telling him what he wanted to hear. And guess what happened?
Yep. Oh, boy. So when Trump was sworn in on the 20th or something like that. So close of business January 21st. The Dow was at 44,025.81. Close of business yesterday, the Dow was at 42,579.08. That's a drop of 1,446 points.
It's precipitous, to say the least.
44.7 if you were rounding up. And that is, in terms of percentage, a 3% drop. 10 starts to be a correction. 20 is a recession. And the Wall Street Journal yesterday was kind of asking whether or not Trump was wanting to cause one. Tariff wars sinking world into new Great Depression, International Chamber of Commerce warns. The recession trade is back on Wall Street, according to the Wall Street Journal. Is a recession coming? Here are some signs of market jitters. Wall Street Journal. That Marxist, socialist, liberal rag, the Wall Street Journal. Recession. The guy who loves and lives for positive press has the leading financial paper suggesting he is about to cause an international recession. I'm sure that just fits in well with his gentle, tender ego and his everybody loves Trump delusional self-image. This is not good. It's just really not good. So yeah, we'll see what happens today. But yeah, I expect that there'll probably still be some more movement because there's a lot more industries that are in his ear at the moment. There are people panicking now because, again, he seems to be coming for people's money, and he seems to be destined to have a climate of instability and unpredictability. And he's not going to keep people's support for long if he keeps yo-yoing them like this. This is whiplash level yo-yoing. whiplashy level. All right. Enough about him, because we actually have some news, some Canada news. The first bit of news is that decision that we were waiting for, whether or not prorogation was constitutional, came down, and as predicted, yes. Like anybody could have told you, the court basically dismissed it. Federal judges dismissed a legal challenge of Justin Trudeau's move to prorogue Parliament, concluding the Prime Minister did not exceed the bounds of his authority. Two Nova Scotiamen had asked the federal court to declare the current suspension of Parliament illegal because there must be a reasonable justification for hitting the pause button. David McKinnon of Amherst, Nova Scotia, and Aris Lavranos of Halifax sought an order setting aside Trudeau's January decision to advise Governor-General Mary Simon to exercise her power to prorogue Parliament until March 24th. Federal lawyers argued that Trudeau's advice to Simon was not subject to review by courts and that the ultimate judgment rested with the voting public. In a ruling made public late Thursday, Federal Court Chief Justice Paul Crampton said the courts do have a role to play in reviewing the advice, and it's important that it be exercised to maintain public confidence in the institutions of government. However, he concluded that the applicants failed to demonstrate that Trudeau exceeded limits established by the written constitution, unwritten constitutional principles, or any other legal limits. On January 6, Trudeau fought back tears as he announced plan to resign as Prime Minister once the new Liberal leader is chosen. Trudeau also said Simon had agreed to his request to prorogue Parliament, wiping the legislative slate clean and pausing the business of the House of Commons and Senate. He said prorogation would allow for a reset of Parliament, which had been largely paralyzed for months as the Conservatives pressed the Liberals to hand over documents related to misspending on a green tech fund. McKinnon and Lavranos asked the court to expedite a hearing of their application for judicial review, citing the urgent U.S. threat of steep tariffs on goods from Canada. They maintained that Trudeau's decision effectively denied Parliament the ability to carry out its constitutional functions in the, quote, exceptional and compelling circumstances posed by the tariff threat. The applicants also argued that unwritten constitutional principles indicate Parliament, not the executive, is supreme, and that to maintain authority to govern, the government must remain accountable to and retain the confidence of Parliament. Crampton wrote in his ruling that he understood why McKinnon and Lavranos might find the circumstances surrounding Trudeau's decision to seek prorogation to be troubling. He said this is particularly so in a broader context in which the executive branch has been increasingly drawing functions away from the legislative branch through concentration of power in the cabinet and the Prime Minister's office. However, the applicants bore the burden of demonstrating that the Prime Minister's decision, viewed in its entirety, exceeded the scope of his authority, Crampton wrote. They failed to meet that burden. Crampton found the applicants did not substantiate their allegation that Trudeau's decision was part of a stratagem, quote, part of a stratagem designed specifically to interrupt the business of Parliament and stymied the public stated intent of a majority of the House of Commons to bring a motion for non-confidence in the government. He said McKinnon and Lavranos did not establish when, if at all, a non-confidence vote likely would have occurred in the absence of Trudeau's decision. They also conceded during the court hearing last month that the government enjoyed the confidence of the House all the time. And I think the 10 or so times that it had been tested previously as well. The applicants alleged that Trudeau's decision was made, quote, in service of the interests of the Liberal Party of Canada as it began the process of selecting a new leader. Crampton indicated there were several other reasons given for the decision, and it was not possible to disentangle them from possibly partisan reasons. Quote, on their face, those other reasons related either to the business of Parliament or to what happens to be the Prime Minister's view of the public interest, he wrote. It is not the court's role to question the merits or wisdom of those reasons. Crampton said that in deciding the issue, he was mindful of the emphasis of the Supreme Court of Canada has placed on the court's retaining from, quote, undue interference with other branches of government. Now, while this is a good decision in terms of the final decision was the right one, Evan Scrimshaw did point out that it is a terrible legal decision in the way that it was constructed. He says, to find the decision illegal, the court would have had to make three findings: that the court has jurisdiction to rule on this, that the plaintiffs have standing to sue, and that the decision was unconstitutional. The court easily found the plaintiffs had standing, and that seems correct. If the question is whether the decision was an unconstitutional violation of democratic rights, then yes, any citizen should have standing. But the other two parts are where this gets fucked. The decision to take this case at all is extremely suspect, and the logic is unclear. Where the court landed is that the Governor General is but a rubber stamp but for the PM, and that accordingly this decision is judiciable like any other prime ministerial edict. It's a nifty legal argument, but the problem is it overvalues broad precedents about reserve powers and ignores specific precedents of political questions around advice and Parliament itself. The King Byng affair proves that the idea that the prime ministerial advice constitutes the exercise of reserve powers is laughable. That can only be true if the Governor General is bound to enact the PM's will no matter what, which they are not. As BC 2017 and King Byng prove, that process is not automatic. If the argument is that the issuance of advice is decisive and nothing else matters, then Christy Clark should have been granted the dissolution she sought in 2017. That she wasn't suggests this is nonsensical. Now let's accept this nonsensical garbage for a second and talk about the decision to rule that Trudeau's decision was legal. There's an insane digression into Section 5 of the Charter, where the judge acknowledges that there are legislative limits to prorogation in some circumstances, and completely ignores the fact that Parliament legislating limits in some cases and none in general is a decision by Parliament to allow this. If you say your kids can't play video games after 4 p.m. or when company's over, and those are the only restrictions you place on them, don't be shocked if your kid tries to play them from the minute he wakes up till 4 p.m. If Parliament wanted harsher limits on the prorogation power, they should have legislated them. But the judge's decision really comes down to the issue of ducking a non-confidence vote through prorogation. The court, in its infinite wisdom, decided that the court, quote, should avoid drawing any inference regarding a prime minister's unstated intentions in relation to prorogations except in exceptional circumstances. I wish I was joking here, but I'm not. Essentially, it's this dumbass's opinion that the court has jurisdiction to rule on this issue, but also unless the PM explicitly says he's doing it to avoid losing the confidence of the House, there's nothing the court can do. The decision to give the PM that benefit completely destroys the purpose of judicial review in general, and this case in particular, by punting the decision on whether avoiding a non-confidence motion is a legitimate use of the prorogation power or not. If your position is the PM is entitled to broad latitude on his reasons for prorogation, essentially that political reality is irrelevant for judicial review. Why the fuck did you bother making this subject to judicial review in the first place? This may seem like irrelevant This may seem like irrelevant legalese, and on some level it is. Trudeau remains the PM for a few more days, the prorogation is legal, and the timeline remains the timeline. But this decision is a crock of shit that, if allowed to stand, will set us up for failure down the line. By this standard, you can argue 2008 was an illegal prorogation because Stephen Harper, after getting the prorogation granted, says that the reason he did it was so that he could do what Canadians, as he claimed, wanted them to do, which is to get on and govern. That's not explicitly admitting he closed Parliament to avoid losing a vote, but it's pretty damn fucking close. And by this standard, it would be line ball whether it was legal. We would know for sure if they hadn't punted the question, but that's too much to ask, apparently. More broadly, an important constitutional question cannot be left to such nonsensical opinion. This case gets everything it could wrong. It is a disastrous decision, even though it gets the air quotes, quote, right decision. In this case, the decision I agree with. It is a mess, completely inconsistent and completely toothless. One of the reasons Stephen Harper had a terrible record at the Supreme Court, and this observation is being stolen from Paul Wells, though I cannot find which case he originally said it about, was that most of the court cases were fundamentally similar. And most, but not all, but most, of the government's clauses, the legal question was not about enumerated rights or powers, but about whether the feds could get around the law by finding backdoors which would de facto violate previous decisions or constitutional principles, but de jure be in compliance. The feds would try a different way in, only for the Supreme Court to be more focused on the substance than form. And that's why I keep on saying with Stephen Harper, with the way he was doing about it when he was the most overturned prime minister, this was all shit he tried to get away with. These were all unconstitutional moves he tried to get away with. These were all rights of yours that he tried to take away, and he knew he couldn't do it through the right way. He couldn't just repeal it, so he tried to find clever backdoor ways to make it essentially the law. He tried to get away with a lot. He was overturned a lot. He was very fixated on trying to take away your rights incrementally by trying to find creative and clever backdoors to avoid constitutional principles and laws. This decision is the opposite It's only concerned with form and not substance. It's a decision that is timid in so many ways, but also radical. It's a radical statement about the nature of the Governor General's role, but also entirely timid about politics. It's a document that both wants to place judicial review at the core of political questions, but also has decided that if a question is political, you can't infer anything based on it. It's a nonsensical standard that falls apart entirely. One of the arguments against judicial review of eminently political questions is that there are phrases in politics that are not meant to be taken literally. There are matters of form, face saving, and signal that cannot be taken literally. With respect, Justin Trudeau prorogued Parliament so the Liberal Party would have enough time to choose a new leader without a non-confidence vote toppling him. I know it, everybody reading it knows it, and if we got his dumbass on the truth serum, he'd admit he knows it too. But Justin Trudeau has no incentive to say so bluntly, and we're not allowed to draw any inferences. So what's the fucking point? Say there was reporting in a major newspaper that a prime minister made a decision for X reason and the PM comes out and denies it, saying he did it for Y reason. Would it be the court's job to decide whether the PM or the national newspaper was right? Would we put Bob Fife or John Iveson or whoever wrote it on the stand? What are we doing here? I know I'm being hysterical here, but I'm doing this for a reason. This decision is batshit crazy. It's an incoherent decision trying to be everything to everybody, and it fails. It's a disgrace to law, to politics, and to the federal court, and every part of it should be tossed aside by the Supreme Court. There you go. So sometimes just because you get the right legal decision doesn't mean you necessarily got there the right way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you never want to use a bad case to create new precedent ever in law. So if this is indeed what it is, if the premise is that the Governor General just does what the Prime Minister wants anyway, she's just a rubber stamp. So yeah, of course we need to step in and review. No. The Governor General has the right to say no. Has the authority to say no. Shouldn't say the right. Has the authority, constitutional authority, to deny a request. Now, the Governor General most often, like 99.96% of the time, acts on the advice of the leader of the day, but not all the time. Same thing with lieutenant governors in provinces, right? When he's talking about the Christy Clark government requesting a dissolution in 2017, the lieutenant governor saying, nope. So, but as everyone said from the beginning, denied, and the reason the court took this case was to create the precedent so that nobody does this again. Problem is, screwed up in the judicial reasoning along the way, which creates an opening that we probably don't want there to be there. So Evan's probably right. This should be challenged because while the decision is right, the foundation on which it's based is flawed. Because there's no reality in which the Governor General or Lieutenant Governor is a rubber stamp.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Other news that was really interesting. Remember when some people from the NDP a couple of months ago were saying all the Prime Minister needs to do, if he really wanted to, is sit down with the provinces and he could hammer out these pharmacare deals in 1 week, 2 weeks max.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah. Yesterday, there was a big announcement on childcare.
Yes, and I have a clip for you here.
Yes, I have we could do the whole clip. There's also the whole press conference, but yeah, we could do the clip.
It's about 1 minute and 39 seconds, and it's going to get you in the feels.
Yep.
Let's have a look. I'll put it up because I think it's important, especially at what he says here. And he does get emotional, but just watch.
Office, I put Canadians first, that I have people's backs. And that's why I'm here to tell you all that we got you. Even in the very last days of this government, we will not let Canadians down today and long into the future. Because in the past few weeks, we've been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on this system, not just for years to come, but will allow this system to lock in, to become something that no government, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, could ever go back on. And it's hard to do, because there is nothing one government can't do that can't be undone by the following government. Unless Canadians are very clear on the need to keep this going. So we are going to make sure that more Canadians over the coming years understand that childcare is a foundational building block of what it means to be Canadian, like healthcare or social programs or cheering at a Canadian anthem. Today, we have great news to share. We've reached a deal with 11
of 13 provinces. You know who the two provinces that's had?
You get three guesses, kids and cubs. You get three guesses, kids and cubs. So the two provinces and territories who are not, with whom a deal has not been struck. And newspaper articles were seeing that there was a line there. So these two provinces were not able to reach, Ottawa was not able to reach an agreement with these two provinces. No. When the federal government puts out a deal and is able to negotiate successfully with 11 provinces and territories and not two, it's not Ottawa that failed to reach an agreement with those two provinces, but those two provinces that failed to reach an agreement with Ottawa.
Correct.
Especially when you're talking about a sitting prime minister who's literally on his way out, who's able to get 11 provinces and territories to sign on to this deal. If you want to have any proof of how it is that the provinces, even a lot of the conservative ones, have fully bought in to childcare and see its value, is that all of them signed a deal, except two, with days left in this prime ministership to make sure that they lock it in just in case someone else comes along.
And who are those two provinces? Well, Linda came up with the answer: Alberta and Saskatchewan.
You win the prize. It's a Toblerone, Daddy. I just
continue.
Of course, Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan is extremely disappointing because where did our universal health care come from? Saskatchewan. Tommy Douglas. Voted as the greatest Canadian. So Saskatchewan is going backwards. Instead of taking care of children, they want to profit off of it.
So, yeah, great deal being done for those who have signed on, of course. People, kids and cubs in Alberta and Saskatchewan, maybe an early democracy, something that you do. Maybe you want to write a letter, place a phone call, asking why it is that your premiers do not believe that you deserve this. Maybe. According to CBC, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's government has signed agreements totaling almost $37 billion over 5 years with 11 provinces and territories that will extend the federal childcare program until 2031. With just days to go before he leaves office, Trudeau said Thursday that these deals will ensure the long-term viability of one of his government's flagship policies. And a lot of them were expiring this year, so they wanted to get them settled. Becoming visibly emotional as he reflected on his legacy, Trudeau said that he has worked every day to ensure he is putting Canadians first, and childcare has been one of the ways he has done that. And as we just showed you in the clip, I'm here to tell you that we've got you, Trudeau said, even in the very last days of this government. We will not let Canadians down today and long into the future, and you will notice that "we will got you" is also his narrative with regard to the tariff war. That was also his narrative during COVID. That was also his narrative early on, and he talked about this in his speech, right? When first We took hundreds of thousands of children and families out of poverty with the childcare benefit. Then,
Correct.
when we did the Canada Dental benefit, we made sure that children were at the center of it and were among the first to be able to benefit from it. Then we did the Canadian National School Food Program, which not only makes sure that kids get the most out of their learning and are healthier, but it saves families hundreds of dollars per year. And now we're making sure that these daycare deals are being locked in till 2031 and making it very difficult for anyone to try and remove them. And on the other side, we don't believe it, conservatives. We don't believe in costly social programs.
I know you're unemployed, but you got a big tax cut. You know the only tax cut that can affect an unemployed individual is the GST holiday we just had.
Yep.
That's the only tax cut that will positively impact anyone who is unemployed.
Yep.
The only one.
Yep.
That's it.
Quote, in the past few weeks, we have been working with our provincial and territorial partners to make sure that families can rely on this system, not just for years to come, but will allow this to lock in to become something that no government a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now could ever go back on, the Prime Minister said in Ottawa on Thursday. Trudeau said that while any government can undo the work of a previous government, Canadians can ensure childcare survives if they are, quote, very clear on the need to keep this going. Describing childcare as a, quote, national building program, Trudeau said the funding announced Thursday will make sure that more Canadians over the coming years understand that childcare is a foundational building block of what it means to be Canadian, like healthcare, social programs, or cheering at a Canadian anthem. Trudeau said that the 5-year deals that start in 2026-27 will not only help fund childcare in participating provinces until 2031, but they will also increase the base funding by 3% per year for 4 years, starting in 2027-2028, in order to make sure that the program can keep pace with rising costs. And this is really, really cool. And the 3% is a really, really important number, because given that the Bank of Canada's target inflation rate is 2, that means anything around there means that every year the programs actually get a slight little boost in funding.
Mm-hmm.
Inflation was recently came in at 1.9% for the previous month. There was 1.8% and then 2%. If it stays around there, let's say it stays at 2% or lower for an entire year, that extra 1% gets added. It becomes a small little boost. Instead of setting it at 2%, and some years you get to 2.2, so you get some of that eaten away at, setting it at 3 in all normal economic times, makes it so that actually every year you get a little bit of a funding boost. Imagine that, building a program that way. Ottawa's not managed to reach an agreement with Alberta and Saskatchewan. See? No. Alberta and Saskatchewan have not managed to reach an agreement with Ottawa. CBC News is not aware what these Western provinces were offered. This is how the $36.8 billion will be distributed. Quebec gets $9.83 billion, British Columbia $5.38, Manitoba $1.9, Nova Scotia $1.05, New Brunswick $876 million, Newfoundland and Labrador $503 million, Prince Edward Island $199 million, Nunavut $109 million, Northwest Territories $80 million, Yukon $74 million, and Ontario $16.77 billion. Discussions between the Trudeau government, billion.
16
Ontario.
billion. Wow.
Yes, over 5 years.
That makes more sense, actually. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Discussions between the Trudeau government and the two provinces that have not signed an agreement are continuing. In 2021, the federal government announced $30 billion 5-year childcare plan to create 250,000 new affordable spaces. It said the plan would cut the costs of those spaces to $10 a day by 2025-2026, when the federal government began providing a minimum of $9.2 billion annually for the program. Radio-Canada has previously revealed that the labor shortage, inflation, and the complexity of the program have since complicated the realization of that promise. On Thursday, Trudeau said that while the program has been slow to meet its goals since its inception, 150,000 new childcare spaces have been created or funded, and that this additional money would create the remaining spaces by this time next year. So it will be 100,000 more new spaces by this time next year than exist currently. Pierre Poilievre's Conservative Party voted for the legislation that created the program, but he's promising changes if he takes power to end the, quote, chaos, really, in childcare. Former central banker Mark Carney, seen as the frontrunner in the Liberal leadership race, has promised not to cut federal transfers to provinces and individuals. In the 2021 budget, the federal government said that of the $30 billion promised, $27.2 billion will be used, quote, to bring the federal government to a 50-50 share of childcare costs with provincial and territorial governments. As part of the agreement struck with the provinces, the Liberal government paid $6 billion to Quebec, which already had its own childcare program. Under the deal, Quebec chose where that funding went. All right. So, childcare gets funding. Now, the other thing, however, that may have been missed is that earlier, about 7 days ago, according to Unifor, Manitoba, first province to join national pharmacare.
Mm-hmm.
Unifor calls on others to follow. What were the odds that the first province with whom the federal government could strike a pharmacare deal is Manitoba, led by New Democrat Wab Kinew?
Well, again, and we do say that, yes, his party is the New Democratic Party of the province of Manitoba. However, he is more aligned with the Joe Clark progressive conservatives of a time long ago. I mean, that's just legitimately what it is.
Mm-hmm. But what are the odds out of all of them? It would have been Wab Kinew.
No surprise whatsoever. He is the most popular premier in the country and has an approval rating of somewhere near 70%, which is really high. Because there's still going to be some holdouts who will, I'm conservative no matter what. I was like, or I'm liberal no matter what, or I'm green no matter what. I'm like, hey, grow, man, grow. This is a good man who's doing good things for the province and the citizens thereof. Grow. Take a look at what he's doing. Take a look at how he is improving. What the hell just happened to my camera? Take a look at how he is improving lives. That was very strange. Let me just fix this. I don't know what's going on here. Take a look at how, that's just bizarre. Take a look at how he's improving lives across the province of Alberta. There we go. I don't know what happened there. That was weird.
That was really weird. So, Unifor is calling on all provincial and territorial governments to follow Manitoba's lead after the province became the first to join the National Pharmacare Program. Quote, this is a major step forward in making prescription drugs more accessible for working people, said Unifor National President Lana Payne. Quote, no one should have to choose between their health and their finances. The federal government and Manitoba announced a $219 million deal to fund universal coverage for diabetes medication and contraception. The agreement is the first under the Pharmacare Act, which Unifor has long supported as a critical step towards universal single-payer drug coverage for all Canadians. Quote, this is exactly what the federal and provincial governments can accomplish when working together, said Unifor Western Regional Director Gavin McGarrigle. Premier Wab Kinew and his government are leading the way, showing real leadership in making pharmacare reality. Pharmacare saves lives, it saves money, and it's long overdue. Now, Peter Julian, I think it was, said that these deals could be struck with all provinces and territories within a couple of weeks. I think about 2 months ago, he said that, if the Prime Minister really, 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 really wanted to. Well, childcare, where everybody really believes it, he's able to do it, and still 2 provinces are holding up. And Pharmacare, the first one, was finally signed last week with the Premier, other than maybe Susan Holt, that everyone would expect to be the first one with whom he would be able to reach such a deal. But it's still the one that was going to be the person with whom it was going to be easiest to negotiate, the one that would be most amenable to negotiating, still took till February 28th. So when Peter Julian and the NDP were out there telling you, oh yeah, it's just an easy thing, just a couple of strokes of pen, just like me, what were they asking for? What type of diligence were they asking for a deal? Just agree to anything. Sign it, say you got a deal. I'm just like, what type of quality deal if they thought that 13 of them could be done that quickly and it was only a matter of will with everything else going on in the world?
Yeah. Okay.
By the way. They're just broadcasting from La La Land.
Oh, yes.
Over here. Now, interesting thing about this deal is that because Manitoba was already funding contraceptives to a certain extent, this money will help fund a broader range. But whatever money is left over, congratulations, women of Manitoba who sometimes need hormone replacement therapy during the times of menopause. Because the money that was going to be used to cover contraceptives that Manitoba was already spending, covering that for you, will be used to cover that instead.
Mm-hmm.
So in Manitoba, the pharmacare program covers contraceptives, diabetes medications, and certain tools and equipment that we need, and hormone replacement therapy for women who need it. More for you. But Canada's broken.
Yeah.
According to someone. Manitoba became the first province to officially join Ottawa's pharmacare program on Thursday, giving it access to federal funding to cover the cost of birth control and diabetes medications, as well as hormone replacement therapy for menopause. Quote, "This is the beginning of a journey that cannot end," Health Minister Mark Harlan said at the announcement in Winnipeg. Quote, "There's no room for politics in this. It's just logic. It's the thing we must do for the country." And petty me just can't help but wonder if Wab Kinew chose hormone replacement therapy for a specific reason. Now, yes, in this case, it is for women, right? As therapy for menopause, but hormone replacement therapy has been in the news for other reasons of late. So validating hormone replacement therapy in whatever way, even if it's like obliquely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if there are levels there. Maybe there's not, because this is quite possibly a very, contraception, hormone replacement therapy, 2 different stages of life. Probably, go hand in hand. There's a natural association there. Doesn't have to be about something else, because there's clearly a reality in which there could be about nothing else. But I'd like to believe there's a signal there. I see a signal there. Let's put it that way. I don't know if there was one intended, but I do. The deal will see the federal government spend $219 million on pharmacare coverage for Manitoba over 4 years. The cost of contraceptives, diabetes medications, and hormone replacement therapies will be covered with no copay or dispensing fee for the patient, but people may have to pay pharmacist prescribing fees or delivery fees. The Manitoba government launched a program last fall to cover the cost of birth control and medications to treat HIV and AIDS as well. I did not know that. What the hell is going on in Manitoba? Way to go. Please.
Forward thinking.
My God, this is great. Wow. This is going to allow for us to expand, said Manitoba Health Minister Uzoma Asagawara. No, I mispronounced that, sorry. Uzoma Asagwara, adding that additional contraceptives will be covered by the federal program along with menopause therapies. The Federal Pharmacare Act became law in October, setting the stage for Ottawa to begin negotiations with provinces and territories. The initial phase of the program provides coverage for diabetes and birth control drugs, while a year-long study determines the best path toward a full universal pharmacare program. The legislation was a key part of the supply and confidence agreement between the Liberals and the NDP that kept the Liberal minority government in power for more than 2 years, and that the Liberal government is still honoring despite the fact that the NDP ripped it up. I will point out. Quote, "Every day the Liberals drag their feet is another day that Canadians are pulling out their wallets and paying for prescriptions that the law says should be free now or going without the medications they need," Singh said. Somewhere in a wind tunnel. Coverage in Manitoba under the federal deal is expected to begin in June. That timeline may place the start of the program after the next federal election. It appears increasingly likely that Canadians will be sent to the polls next month after the Liberals choose their next leader. Quote, "I wish we could snap our fingers and do these things, but there's a lot of logistics," Holland said when asked why the coverage won't begin sooner. He said the government wants to be flawless in its execution of the program. Quote, "If this is going to be enduring, it has to be done right," he said. It's clear the program's future will become a factor in the next election campaign. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre spoke against the radical plan in the House of Commons last fall,
Radical.
and all Conservative MPs voted against the pharmacare legislation. In a statement on Thursday, Conservative health critic Stephen Ellis argued a universal pharmacare program would kick millions of people off their workplace benefits plans and said his party will instead, quote, work with provinces to improve prescription drug access for Canadians. We don't need better access. We need to be able to afford them.
Access.
Our
it's like-
access is very good.
well, that's the thing. It's like, we'll provide you with better access.
We have some of the best
man,
access to medications in the world.
I have access to a Lamborghini. I can't buy one. Right? I have access to one. I can go down to the dealership. There it is. I can look at it. I can't
Political
buy it.
gobbledygook.
Access.
Political
to healthcare.
gobbledygook. Access. Jeez.
We have
Singh said the
access.
NDP. Yes. Singh said the NDP will run in the next election on expanding the program. Last month, Holland suggested New Democrats should consider keeping the minority Liberals in power longer to ensure pharmacare deals get signed before an election. But Mark Carney, the apparent frontrunner in the Liberal leadership race, said this week that it is likely he would call an early election if he wins the race on March 9th. Holland said that all Liberal leadership candidates have committed to continuing the pharmacare program. Quote, I think this is a statement of values for this country that we stand behind women having autonomy over their own bodies, he said. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce expressed disappointment with the news on Thursday, saying it believes the government's approach will, quote, result in access to fewer drugs, worse health outcomes for Canadians, and drastic increases in public spending. Really? The federal government, I guess the Chamber of Commerce would rather that money be spent on business tax cuts.
Apparently. Yeah.
Rather than you. Yes. The federal government has set aside $1.5 billion for the initial phase of pharmacare. A full universal insurance program is expected to cost another $11.2 billion a year, according to the parliamentary budget officer. Thursday's announcement also includes $48 million in federal funding to cover the cost of diagnosing, screening, and treatment for rare diseases. That funding is part of a $1.5 billion national strategy for drugs for rare diseases that was launched in March 2023. So there you go. Pharmacare deals, childcare deals. Once again, proving, as we keep on saying on this show, that there's no such thing as a lame duck prime minister in Canada.
Mhm.
We have a prime minister that has full powers and full rights and full privileges and full authority to do whatever decisions until they are no longer prime minister. That's how it works here.
I figured out the technical problem here on my end. When I was trying to access the camera software, I hit the reset button by accident. That's why it kept doing that. My fault. My fault. Yeah, I was
Okay.
trying to access the software because it's multiple tiled windows. And when I clicked on it, I clicked the reset button. And I did it twice. That was my fault completely. So my apologies if I was freaking people out. Freaked me out too. So yeah.
Mr. Grizzly, since we're talking about Manitoba, there's one
Manitoba.
other thing I would like to show because I saw this. This came across my feed yesterday, and I thought it was very, very, very important. There is a clip in the story, Mr. Grizzly, that will have some few ads before you can load it up. So I will introduce this while this is happening for you. The other day, we showed you, I believe her name is Elle Harris, speaking about the search of I think it was the Prairie Green landfill in the Winnipeg area for the remains of her mother,
Okay.
who had been, trigger warning, murdered by someone who is now a convicted serial killer. And during the previous election,
There's no ads.
okay,
It's just a
during the
2-minute clip.
previous, yeah, during the previous election, the then government, progressive conservative government, allegedly progressive conservative government of Manitoba, campaigned on not searching the landfill, almost like it was a virtue. Health and safety, we just really can't do it. And you will remember in the clip, Miss Harris was very emotional to all the people when she addressed all the people that said no at the time. And how could you? Well, there's been some developments, Mr. Grizzly.
There indeed have been.
Melissa Ridgen is at the Prairie Green landfill tonight. Melissa.
Search teams have been working here daily since December, looking for the remains of as many as 3 women who were murdered and dumped in garbage bins back in 2022. Yesterday, the families of 2 women, Mercedes Myron and Morgan Harris, rushed here after the discovery of what's believed to be human remains. Today, they gathered in downtown Winnipeg.
All I could think about is I want my mom. No one should go through any type of heartbreak without their mom. Yesterday when I left the landfill, I felt like I was abandoning her again. I felt like I was leaving her. No family, no person should go through what we went through.
Elle Harris's mother, Morgan, and Mercedes Myron, and possibly a third still unidentified woman could be at the Prairie Green landfill, all victims of Jeremy Skibitsky, who's serving a life sentence for killing 4 Indigenous women after luring them to his Winnipeg apartment and using their bodies for sex. Remains of a 4th victim, Rebecca Contois, were found in a dumpster near Skibitsky's home, as well as in a different Winnipeg area landfill back in 2022. Top of mind, too, for families is that the search for their loved ones almost didn't happen.
I was thinking back to when we were all told no, right? When the Winnipeg police told us no. You know, when the government, Heather Stephenson, told us no. You know, that couldn't be done and that it wouldn't be done. You know, to hell with all you guys, because it got done.
The search here continues. The potential remains that were found are now in the hands of forensic investigators. While families wait for final word, they are eager for closure and a proper burial for their loved ones. Donna.
All right, Melissa Ridgen at
All right.
Remind me if I get this wrong, I apologize, but Heather Stephenson was the former premier of the province of Manitoba, and if memory serves, there was a gentleman who had just posed a question regarding residential schools, an Indigenous man who posed a question regarding residential schools, and her response was, yeah, I'll get right to that, but first let me talk about how my son was successful in his hockey tournament.
Yes, that is the same person.
Like, good God, man.
You remember correctly.
He was just talking about the horrors he went through, and all your responses. Yeah, that's nice, whatever. But my son was successful in his hockey tournament. Yeah, and I'm happy for your son, but time and place, lady. Read the goddamn room. What in the living? That is blatant disregard for that man's humanity. Blatant disregard.
Yeah.
It's just.
And Manitoba is also the province under the previous progressive conservative government, when we brought you this, that had named a new Indigenous minister one day. And on his first day, his name was Alain Lagimodière. And on his first day said, at the time, I think the intent, speaking of residential schools, they thought they were doing the right thing. In retrospect, it's easy to judge in the past, but at the time, they really thought that they were doing the right thing. And you remember, and they said, from my knowledge of it, the residential school system was designed to take Indigenous children and give them the skills and abilities they would need to fit into society as it moved forward. And that's when Manitoba NDP leader at the time, but not Premier Rob Canoe, interrupted him politely.
Mm-hmm.
And said he could not accept the comments, and stated it was the expressed intent of residential schools to kill the Indian and the child. Canoe said, it's not cultural relativism, it's not revisionist history for us to say that that was wrong.
No, it's not.
And Lagimodière, the new Indigenous minister, at the time of Indigenous Reconciliation and Northern Affairs, was Métis. The progressive conservative government picked a Métis man to stand in front of a mic and claim that residential schools
What a good idea.
were well intended. So it's no surprise that they were not willing
to search that landfill. Well, yesterday, Global News, Brittany Hobson from the Canadian Press says, the interim leader of Manitoba's Progressive Conservatives apologized Wednesday to the families of 2 slain First Nations women after refusing to search a landfill for the remains and touting the decision in a provincial election campaign ad. Wayne Ewasco offered an unconditional apology in the House to the families of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron. Quote, we lost our way in regards to empathy and also lost our way in regards to closure being brought forward to the families of the victims, he said. We will be better as a party moving forward. We will be better as a party moving forward, and you have my word on that. Wow. The Progressive Conservatives, led by then Premier Heather Stephenson, were in government when the families presented them with the feasibility study outlining how a search could be done. Winnipeg police had refused to do a search because of safety concerns. The Tories later cited the same safety reasons for not supporting the dig, so the Conservatives sided with the police. As usual. They also ran ads during the 2023 election campaign that promoted their decision. The NDP government elected that year promised to search, and with the federal government funded, that effort began in December. The province announced last week that possible remains had been found, but that it could take weeks for coroners to make an identification. The daughter of Harris said she was conflicted about the apology. A daughter of Harris said she was conflicted about the apology. Quote, I'm questioning why this apology was released publicly, and I wonder if it was because they were generally sorry or if it was just to save face, because they were wrong and our families were right from the very beginning, Cambria Harris said in a video statement posted online. If this apology was made publicly first and not to them personally, whatever you are paying your people in PR, you're not paying them enough. For this type of thing, you always apologize personally first. And then, yes, you absolutely apologize publicly because you did the shit publicly. But you apologize personally first. You didn't want to search a landfill. Children of a parent asked you to search for their mother. And you said no. If that isn't like top of the list of the things for which you apologize for personally, I don't know what is. So while you're apologizing for losing your way on empathy, you lost your way on empathy. Again. As we keep on saying, it ain't what you do sometimes, it's the way that you do it. No wonder she's conflicted about the apology.
Yeah, no kidding. We should wrap up shortly. I just wanted to get to a couple of things that are top of my mind at this moment, and I wanted to deal with them.
If you may, I would like to finish this section.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
However.
My apologies.
Yeah, sorry, no worries. Ewasco told reporters that he welcomed an opportunity to speak with families in the future. She said later in a message to the Canadian Press that the apology came, Harris said the apology came as a surprise, as no one from the party had been in touch about it before with her family. Harris said the Tories had numerous opportunities to meet with the families, but didn't. Not much hope for the future. Our families have done the work. Now it's up to them to prove us otherwise, that they can be better human beings, she said. Premier Wabkanu responded to the apology in the House, saying the Tories have a long way to go to gain back trust from the families and Manitobans. Quote, it remains to be seen whether the Progressive Conservative Party will learn from the terrible mistakes of Heather Stephenson and take those going forward, he said. It's up to them to show that through their actions now. In other words, I'll believe it when it lasts. Thanks for the apology, but I'll believe you were sorry when you've shown me consistently over time through your behavior, your actions, and your words that you actually are sorry. Which I do not think is an unreasonable response. So, hey, at least it's a step. And just to mention as an aside, we never actually mentioned it on the show, and I feel terrible for that. But there is a leadership race going on in Manitoba for the leadership of the Progressive Conservative Party. To register to vote, unfortunately, closed on February 28th. Sorry, it just completely escaped us. We never got a chance to tell you about it beforehand. But there are 2 candidates
Yeah. But there are two candidates in that race, and please take some time to check that out if you are there. I believe that the two candidates, well, kind of lost it off the top of my head. Anyway, I'll do it in the democracy something that you do section. Mr. Grizzly, you had something.
Yeah, a couple things here I wanted to address. First off, in Alberta, you might not be aware of this, but the RCMP have launched a probe into AHS amid government corruption allegations. Mounties in Alberta have launched an investigation following a complaint regarding Alberta Health Services, the health agency linked to an ongoing government corruption scandal. Now remember, this scandal is what had Nate have to shut his channel for a couple of weeks.
Yes, because apparently he was defaming people.
He was not.
So I'm waiting for the lawsuit on the RCMP for having publicly announced that there's an open investigation, which I'm sure if Nate's claims were defamatory, well, opening an investigation, somebody saying, hey, something criminal might have happened here, enough, and there's enough evidence to warrant opening an investigation, surely would be defamatory.
Yeah, well, none of the allegations have been proven in court, but Alberta's Auditor General and Smith's government have launched their own probes into the contracts. Earlier this week, the province selected a former Manitoba judge to be the third party who will review irregularities in medical contracts. The Honourable Raymond E. Wyant is to deliver an interim report by the end of May and a finalized version by June 30th. NDP leader Naheed Nenshi previously called for an RCMP investigation and for all parties named in the allegations, including Smith, Tremblay, and Health Minister Adrienne Lagrange, to step aside during the probes. Both Smith and Lagrange have denied any wrongdoing. Lagrange has said she plans to file a statement of defense. Smith has faced pushback from within her own UCP caucus, with Airdrie Cochrane MLA Peter Guthrie quitting to sit on the backbench, citing concerns with the ongoing scandal. So, yeah. Let the chips fall where they may.
On February 13th, 2025, the RCMP issued the following statement after receiving a complaint relating to Alberta Health Services. Quote, I can confirm that the RCMP has received a complaint and it's currently being reviewed. At this time, we have no further details to provide. Effective yesterday, the statement has been updated to, quote, on February 6th, 2025, 1 week earlier than the date stated previously, the RCMP received a complaint relating to Alberta Health Services. Following a review, the RCMP has begun an investigation into the matter. As this is an ongoing investigation, no further details are available at this time. The above can be attributed to an RCMP spokesperson. The RCMP acknowledges that both the public and the media have strong interest in this investigation. While we are limited in what we can share at this time, we are committed to providing updates when available. And this got so much attention that Carrie Tate, who's been reporting on this for the Globe and Mail and doing quite a good job, along with Alana Smith on this one, who's a health reporter, the article about it, because most everything in the Globe and Mail is behind a paywall. But this one isn't. They want you to read this one for free. The RCMP are investigating allegations of inflated contracts and inappropriate procurement procedures in Alberta's healthcare system. The National Police Service confirmed Thursday, escalating a controversy that has already sparked an Auditor General examination, an internal investigation, and a resignation from Premier Danielle Smith's cabinet. The Mounties received a complaint February 6th, the day after the Globe and Mail first reported allegations of government interference, pricey contracts, and procurement problems at Alberta Health Services and the province's Ministry of Health. Those allegations are at the center of a $1.7 million wrongful dismissal lawsuit filed last month by AHS's former chief executive, Athana Mentzelopoulos. The RCMP previously said that it was reviewing the complaint and changed the file status on Thursday. Alberta fired Ms. Mentzelopoulos on January 8th, roughly 1 year into her 4-year contract. She alleges that the Premier's then Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, and other government officials exerted pressure on her to sign deals to the benefit of private businesses. Ms. Mentzelopoulos alleges that she was terminated 2 days before she was scheduled to meet with Alberta's Auditor General to discuss the investigations she launched while leading the health authority. So, as you mentioned here. Jesse Ramsden, a spokesperson for Health Minister Adriana Lagrange, said Thursday the government will participate in the RCMP investigation as necessary. Quote, the government of Alberta is unaware of the identity of any party under RCMP investigation, but will provide the required cooperation to the RCMP should the government be requested to do so. Ms. Rampton said in a statement, we refer any further inquiries regarding this matter to the RCMP, as it would be entirely inappropriate for the government to comment on an ongoing police investigation. Yes, the same government whose premier didn't find it inappropriate to take a phone call from Artur Puslowski, though.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
But moving on. Yeah, funny how that works. Mr. Smith, who is not related to the Premier, did not acknowledge a request for comment. He previously said he would participate in the government's internal investigation and the Auditor General's examination. Dan Scott, legal counsel for Ms. Mentzelopoulos, said his client welcomes the RCMP investigation. She will, of course, cooperate, he said in a statement. That's probably the truest line in the whole thing. Mr. Scott declined to say whether she has been interviewed by the RCMP. Naheed Nenshi, the leader of the Alberta New Democratic Party, said the official opposition has faith in the RCMP's investigation, although I don't know why, because Jason Kenney had time to be booted from his whole party after creating a whole lot of damage before the investigation revealed ultimately nothing. By the way, you joke. What do Danielle Smith and Doug Ford have in common? RCMP investigations. Funny how it keeps on being conservative governments that keep on being investigated by the RCMP somehow. But it's the other party that's corrupt. Oh well. These allegations of bloated contracts are incredibly serious, and we're glad to see them being treated as such, and she said in a statement. On Monday, the Premier appointed Raymond Wyant, a former Chief Judge of the Provincial Court of Manitoba, to lead the government's internal investigation. His report and recommendations are due at the end of June. Auditor General Doug Wiley confirmed in early February that he is examining procurement and contract practices at the Provincial Health Authority and Ministry of Health, but added that the probe could extend to other organizations. His examination will focus on CSFs, chartered surgical facilities, COVID-19 personal protective equipment, and pain relief medications from Turkey. Peter Guthrie resigned as infrastructure minister last week because he did not feel Ms. Smith and his cabinet colleagues were responding to the allegations with the necessary urgency. This article also doesn't mention that on the way out, he alleged that similar practices may extend to contracting of various types of things that don't have anything to do with things medical. Then maybe you would want to look there too, perhaps. At some time, when you have the time, maybe. Ms. Mentzelopoulos alleges that government officials wanted her to sign deals with private surgical clinics with terms that were inflated compared with what HS pays a private competitor in Calgary and its own internal costs. The former CEO alleges there were concerns within AHS about the true ownership and potential costs of the chartered surgical facilities. Documents obtained by the Globe reveal that some doctors in the Alberta Surgical Group's ownership group are also part owners or directors in the Red Deer and Lethbridge projects. Sam Raish, who gave luxury hockey tickets to cabinet ministers and senior staff in the Premier's office, is also part owner in the proposed CSS. And in 2024, AHS was renegotiating a contract extension with the Alberta Surgical Group and terms for new CSFs in Red Deer and Lethbridge. So, yeah. Yeah. Jesse Baker, a lawyer for Mr. Marich and MHCare, previously stated that, quote, allegations or insinuations of wrongdoing on the part of MHCare Medical Corporation and or Sam Raish are unwarranted and unjustified. But now there is enough at least to justify some type of RCMP investigation, not necessarily into them, but into the thing. So I assume at some point somebody's going to be asking somebody from their questions. So I guess we'll see what happens afterwards. But the status now is officially enough evidence there to warrant an RCMP and them publicly declaring that there is one. Versus one side saying, it's all not true. Grab your popcorn. Mr. Grizzly, do you have any more thoughts on this?
No, but I have an additional thing I wanted to share with you.
Okie dokie.
Two additional things, actually. The first one is, and then we got to go because it's getting late and we're running past the 2-hour mark and we really shouldn't be doing that.
Too much damn news.
I know, but this one I'm going to share with you because this is from our friend, Senator Patrick Brazeau.
Yes, I saw that.
Dear Donald Trump, I once had a boxing match with Justin Trudeau and lost. I know, I still can't believe it myself, but I no longer smoke and have been sober for almost 5 years. In light of these bogus tariffs from President Donald Trump from the Americans onto Canada, I challenge you to fight to raise money for cancer research or an organization of your choosing. Our countries don't need to be at war, but we can fight to raise money. I mean, if you are. P.S. Tariffs have nothing to do with fentanyl. It has to do with our oil, freshwater, minerals, resources, and our Arctic, just but to name a few. So, yeah, he's challenging Donald Trump Jr. I'll fight for my country, will you? This challenge has nothing to do with Americans or the United States of America. It is solely and purely about the proposed bogus tariffs imposed by President Trump onto its number one ally, Canada. Are we still your number one ally? I'm 50 years old, 5'10", 175 pounds, Canadian. I can adjust up or down. FYI, I'll fight you on your home soil. Choose a state, any state, but know this. Canada will never become the 51st state. So, yeah. Kicking ass and taking names, making us proud once again, sir. We appreciate you.
And then
Much
Don
respect.
Jr. I'd like to fight you, but bone spurs right here in my wrist. Sorry. I know. I'm petty. I can't help it. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
We do indeed. I have a nugget for you when we get back. I have an Easter egg on the other side that is going to be... It's going to be what it is. We'll leave it at that.
It's going to be what it is. Okay, that's a good introduction. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we liked making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. And I'm seeing the jokes in the chat here. People saying that they're giving up abstinence for Lent. Kids. I don't think you could do that. That's like asking the genie for 3 more wishes. I don't think it works that way. Now, if you would like to make sure you do not miss an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl who sponsors our pod page. That QR code that just appeared will bring you there. And if you're listening, that's podpage.com/the-true-north-eager-beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you go there and click on subscribe when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. If you'd like to help us in other ways, please make like Kits, Elaine, and Cassie and surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page and click on our buttons like, share, and subscribe. When you do, we get ourselves a little bit of happy, and it helps with the algorithm. So thanks so much for that, eh? And if you would like to help us in other ways, if you think that we have been giving you some good updates on what's going on with the tariffs and trying to keep it sane for you so you don't have to go fly off the handle, and you appreciate that, well then, why not show us a little appreciation by making a contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund? That's how you keep your favorite beaver and grizzly moist, because, my God, we do not like dry beaver around here, and dry grizzly, not good either. So, if you would like to make sure that your critters remain perfectly hydrated, then a contribution to the hydration fund is the way to go. You just need to go to our coffee page. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, lowercase letters, or if you scan that QR code that's appeared by Mr. Grizzly's head right there, that will bring you right there. A little bit of coinage in our tip jar makes a lovely jingling sound, and coins are so shiny. Plus, it makes you 17.8% more interesting at parties. Tipping is very sexy. So, hey, thank you so much. Now, if you're not able to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gifts of your participation and attention are the ones that matter the most to us, and we love to hear from you. truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is where you can write to us. If you've got some ideas, some guests you would like to see, some comments, you want to tell us what you like about the show or how it is you think we can improve constructively, then hey, we're all open to it. All of your comments make the show better, and we read every one. So thank you very much. And also,
If you want to contribute to us directly without helping out the tech CEO bros, True North Eager Beaver by Gmail. True North Eager Beaver by Chanel by Gmail. True North Eager Beaver at gmail.com is where you can send a direct transfer. You deal with Canadian banks, 100% Canadian banks, support a 100% Canadian show, and no American CE bros get a share of your money, and we get 100% of your donation. It's win, 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 and win. So, hey. Now, if you'd like to communicate with us in other ways, we're also available at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge and on the shitter, the bad place, both at True North Eager Beaver on Facebook. And if you're watching on YouTube, right down here on the comment section, let us know what you think. Because democracy is something that you do. Remember, there's a provincial by-election in Manitoba coming up soon. There is one in Halifax coming up as well. If you have the time to check that out, the Halifax one might not happen. However, if there is a declaration of an election happening, it will just get rolled into that. There's the Liberal leadership race, a few days to vote. For those of you who are having difficulty, please keep at it. It doesn't look like anybody's going to get back to me, so I guess I'm going to be disenfranchised twice in a few weeks. Very frustrating. But please do vote. One thing I found really interesting is, though, they said that there was about 400,000 people that had registered earlier, and they're saying that there's only 140,000 people who've had their registrations approved so far. So I'm not sure if there actually was a swarm of false or bot type registrations to help a Ruby Dalla. Because 140,000 out of 400,000 seems a little low.
Yeah.
There should probably be an explanation about that difference there. But yeah, March 9th is the vote, and March 9th we will have a new Prime Minister designate, apparently is the term for it, Prime Minister designate, before they are sworn in. So, yep, that'll be big news this weekend. And of course, there is the PC leadership race in Manitoba, which of course it's too late to register. That was February 28th. But it's a race between two candidates, candidate Obi Khan and Wally Doddridge, apparently.
Former CFL player, Obi Khan, used to play for the Ottawa Rough Riders.
Indeed. Exactly. And Doddridge is a longtime PC member who sat as a member of the party's executive and also ran twice in 2008 and 2011 as a federal conservative candidate in what was then called Churchill riding. Doddridge runs a hotel, an ecotourism company, and a greenhouse in Churchill, and said that Manitoba's economy had failed to grow as quickly as the economies have grown in neighboring Saskatchewan and Ontario. So there you go. And Khan is as you mentioned, CFL player, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber offensive lineman, who started up several businesses before being elected to the Manitoba legislature in 2022 Fort White by-election. And he said that the main task of the next PC leader is to win back the trust of Manitobans following the party's crushing defeat in 2023 at the hands of the New Democratic Party. So those are the two candidates. We'll probably go more into it a little later on as the race continues on, and I think that the vote at some point is in April, if I'm not mistaken. But I will have more information for that. But I'm sorry that we had completely neglected that because it was going on in the background and we did know about it, but it just slipped our minds. So that's all because democracy is something that you can do. And this is something that you can do. Democracy is something that you do. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom, please?
All I've got today is get out, get some exercise, get some fresh air. If the sun is shining where you are, get about 15 minutes of it. It will help you with your vitamin D, which is important for your body and mind and heart and soul. So yeah, if you can get out and take a walk, a brisk walk, get out in the warmer weather, as it is warming up, and springtime will soon be here. I'm predicting March 21st. You know, people say, do you think we'll have an early spring? I'm predicting March 21st. That's the first day of spring.
It's a bold prediction, Cotton.
It's a joke. It was actually, and you know where I got that joke from was from Groundhog Day. Because there's a scene in the film near the beginning where somebody says to Bill Murray's character, do you think we'll have an early spring? He says, I'm predicting March 21st. It's the first day of spring.
Thank you, Captain Obvious. All right, Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
Easter egg. I don't know if anybody is aware of this or not, but the Italian PM proposes extending NATO's Article 5 security umbrella to Ukraine. She says Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, who has suggested extending NATO's Article 5 collective security protections to Ukraine without granting the country full membership in the alliance on the sidelines of EU leaders meeting in Brussels. The central issue is peace in Ukraine, and I believe we must all make every effort to support the peace process, welcoming the U.S. initiative and all those who seek to achieve peace. However, a just peace requires clear security guarantees. According to her, these guarantees must be based on NATO, as it is the only serious means of ensuring them. She argued that sending unspecified military contingents, whether British or otherwise, would be the most complex and possibly least effective solution. She also ruled out any deployment of Italian troops in this context. She stressed the need for long-term security solutions rather than simply sending troops to Ukraine. UN peacekeeping missions are a different matter, but this is a completely different topic, because such missions are deployed when the peace process has already begun. This is not what is currently being discussed, and I remain very skeptical about such proposals. She further explained that extending NATO's Article 5 protections to Ukraine would be a more effective approach than any other security guarantees currently under discussion. This is a quote. "This is not the same as joining NATO, but it would provide Ukraine with the same security umbrella that NATO countries have. It would ensure stable, long-term, and real security guarantees, more than some of the proposals I see now. That is one of the ideas we're putting forward." So what does this mean? I'm not sure. It has to be voted on. If it goes through and they invoke Article 5, that means NATO fully gets involved in the war. Where do we go from there? I don't know.
All right. I've got two Easter egg things for you. The first one is a Canadians who make us proud thing. We have a Canadian cyclist named Derek G, who might have done something that makes him the best Canadian road cyclist in history, thus dethroning Steve Bauer, who's held that title. He won the first UCI stage race overall title of his career. So there are road races that last one day, and then there are stage races like the Tour de France, for example, right, over several days. Steve Bauer won a stage of the Tour de France, right? And that's how he became a really big name in Canada. This guy, Derek G, won a whole race, multi-stage race, for the first time, before the first Canadian to do that. He beat so it was the 5-stage Spanish UCI race of the Grand Camino, and G beat Magnus Cort by 35 seconds overall, with fellow Canadian Hugo Hull finishing 31st overall. G is the first rider from his team, other than the British duo Stevie Williams and Joe Blackmore, to claim an overall victory since June 2023, when fellow Canadian Mike Woods triumphed at the Route d'Occitanie, which is a single-day race. Today was actually great, he says. It's pretty cool to win my first GC. And that's Gran Camino. I love this race. I wanted to win it coming in. That was the goal, but winning races is not easy. I'm overjoyed. G adds, I was pretty stressed going into it, but I couldn't have asked for a better team. I mean, I was at the front all day. They won every fight into all the important sectors. They controlled the breakaway, and there was almost stress because they were so good today. These are class bike riders. They have amazing palmarès. So basically, palmarès is a whole chart of their achievements. And we even brought in a couple of our IPT Academy riders into the squad, and they were amazing. They had to do a lot of work, but they stepped up. This was his first race of the season, so good way to start. And he's building towards the Giro d'Italia in May, which is a very big one. I think it's probably the second biggest one after the Tour de France. It's the Giro d'Italia. So great victory for him there. And one other little bit of news. Yesterday, Frank Graves of ECOS released some polling that seems to indicate that now the Liberals are in majority government territory. Now, this conflicts with some Ipsos polling, I think, or Leger polling that came out a few days before that showed the Liberal lead, the Conservative lead growing from +3 to +13 again. But ECOS is still showing Liberals growing and Liberals crossing 40% nationally for the first time in forever.
Well, and you know
So,
I'm not a fan of polls.
We'll see what
You
happens.
know I'm not a fan of polls, and I don't care for them. But I will say this: the last few elections, who's called it correctly each time? Which company?
Nanos has been pretty good, and ECOS has been pretty good.
Well,
I
most
believe.
of them had the Conservatives winning, but ECOS said no, the Liberals are going to win, and guess who won? Federally. The last 3 elections.
Yes.
The Conservatives were leading,
Yes.
the Liberals won all 3, and ECOS called that. So, food for thought.
Yeah. Food for thought. So, but right, we're having, again, diverging polls again, one going one way, one going the other way, but ECOS was leading the way the first time, and everybody sort of came to it eventually. Now ECOS is saying clear Liberal majority, and if you add McCartney's name specifically rather than generic liberal, it's even better. And if you're looking at 7-day, 5 days, or 4 days and 2-day rollouts, the number keeps on getting higher. So the number right now they're showing is 40 on the 7-day, but the 2-day shows 43. So this could be just a sugar high as we're getting close to the Liberal leadership race vote, because it is over the course of the weekend, but something to keep an eye out for, because if the Conservative numbers are their internal polling numbers are seeing the same, we should see a whole lot more panic coming real soon. All right, that's all we got for you. Long Easter egg, but like I said, there's just too much damn news today.
Gotta go. See you. Have a great weekend.
Have a terrific weekend.